Welcome to the Shamrock Show. Sit down, have a listen, and go fuck yourself.
The Shamrock Show.
What's up, everybody? I just steal
What's
my
up,
man.
everybody?
Steal my man's line. If you're watching my show, if you're a follower of my show, this is my boy Bob Beauvais, the host of the Beauvais MMA Roundhouse, the best MMA podcast you can get into, man. Especially if you're in Connecticut and you're a fight fan, you should be checking this guy out.
And in the words of my best pal Sean, who stole my line, what's up, everybody? Hey, listen, welcome to the special collab we got going on at the Roundhouse with the almighty and powerful Sean Shamrock, the gunboat from the Shamrock Show podcast. Hey, listen, we love everything you're doing out there. You get never mind, we'll get into that in a second, the proper 12 connection here. How about all of these great guests you get on for interviews, brother? Tell us a little bit about the process that goes into that before we get into our favorite subject.
Well, for me, it's like my podcast has kind of evolved differently than I ever thought it would into different things. But it's not about me. Like, I just felt like, man, I know some cool people who, like, their stories that I know, I think other people would like to hear it. And then I started with just people locally who I knew, who I'd like to tell their stories. And then you start shooting your shot. Like, oh, who will talk to me? Like, oh, I read this book. I like this author. Let me shoot her a message. Oh, you want to come on? Sweet. You know what I mean? And it's just kind of, I'm trying to tell other people's stories, interesting stories, and just give people something to listen to, and ideally get inspiration through. Because what I find the common denominator with every successful person is that it was a rough ride, man.
Yeah, really. And I don't know if that's on purpose or not. It seems like that's kind of a running thing with your guests. They've all had some hard knocks. And I got to say, and this is absolutely no slight on any of your awesome guests, but one of my favorite shows was where it was kind of about you and the hard knocks and the dealings you've had with certain associations and whatnot to get into where you're at right now. It was probably one of my favorite shows. I just thought I'd get that out there.
I appreciate that one, and that one landed really big, and that surprised me. I had never thought of doing a monologue where it was just me talking and telling a story. And then I had COVID really bad. And then just my whole year was just messed up. And I didn't have a guest and I hadn't put out content. And I think it was like 5 months, it might've been 3 months, but like whatever. And I was like, dude, I just want to get something out. And I was like, well, this is a story that people who do know me, they ask about it all the time. So I'll start with the strip club and the mafia, and it's boobs and mob. People are going to hit play, right? You know?
Well, that's the you we knew, when I first met you, the circles we were in. That's kind of the you. You were younger than me and somehow had more connections than me and more friends. And I was low-key jealous, you big motherfucker.
Come on. So first off, I want to dedicate this show. I know you got a picture up, but you don't have the full background. But Robbie's a big fight fan. I always want to show Robbie some love. So we'll throw out Robbie pictures from his mother, who's just a great woman and always shows love to both of our podcasts. So I want to make sure we keep Robbie in the forefront. It's a fight podcast. Robbie loved the fights. Robbie loved Conor McGregor. So, I want to make sure I dedicate this to him for sure.
I love you for that. And like yourself, he's always with me. Thanks to you and that picture you got. And yeah, Susan, if you're watching, we love you. We love all sport. We genuinely feel the love and we need you in our lives, so thank you, and we'll try to do our best to support you as well, Susan.
So, UFC 257 this past Saturday. Wow, I'm gonna try to fight through the tears to do this podcast. I'm heartbroken. Not only did I keep Conor on the set, but I broke out the 2 belts just to show you I'm riding with him no matter what. I got the new Conor Roots of Fight shirt on. I felt like the fights. A fight is supposed to answer questions, right? Like, this guy's better than this guy. This guy is on his way up. This guy's on his way down. And to me, the fight left a lot of questions. And we'll get into that. The one last preface I want to make is there's a thin line between reasoning and excuses. And I want to make sure that I have no excuses. I want to say that Dustin Poirier was the better man on the night. He was the better fighter. The better fighter won that particular night. Nothing I'm going to say about what I think about what's going on with Conor is an excuse as to why he lost. I want to dig into why I thought he lost. And I just think Poirier put on a great fight. No excuses. Just shout out to Dustin Poirier,
Yeah, I really can't agree enough. And I leading up to this fight and before leading up to this fight, after their first fight, I said, And I continued to say right up until the fight where I did not think Dustin Poirier did enough to change his ability to keep his chin away from Conor's amazing ability to make that left land. Makes, as I've said before, he confuses you into being a horrible counterpuncher, and he capitalizes on that with his left. So, and I really thought, I didn't think Dustin did enough to get around that. And as soon as the fight started, we've seen almost the first fight a little bit going. A lot of the first round, we could have called that the first fight. It was interesting watching him catch the kicks. That was interesting. I thought it was going to lead to something good. Unfortunately, everything I thought ended up being the opposite. And wow, how about Poirier's power in that pocket? I've got to say, above everything else, that power, those hits were connecting. And let's keep in mind now, this was the first audience we had seen in quite a while. So it had that extra sound, and we could still hear these shots connected. And not to get too far ahead, but also that point goes as well to the Chandler fight.
Yeah, I love that. And I was looking forward to seeing that fight with no fans. I've honestly become more into watching it with no fans. I like it better with no fans. Yep. There are certain things that, the crowd goes wild. It's great, but overall, that is awesome. You know what I mean? It's a whole different thing. So I still don't believe that Poirier has evolved enough to beat the Conor McGregor that beat him. I just don't think that the Conor McGregor who beat him was in that cage that night. And I don't know if he exists anymore. I don't know. First of all, my first seed of worry came at the weigh-ins. So much had been made. Conor was saying that he was in such great shape for this fight, and maybe he was cardio, but he looked scrawny to me. And I posted a picture of them too when they did the hug. I'll throw it up here. Dustin Poirier was looking thick in the torso, man. And they looked a whole weight class separate. And
right, exactly.
That was my first hint of worry. What did you take away from that?
Well, to get even a little ahead of that, we've seen now for, I don't know, a couple of years minimum that McGregor, when he's not actively training for an important fight, he has shown this new found want to be muscular. Yeah. So we see him putting on a lot of weight. A lot of his pictures, he's like this. Mm-hmm. So we kind of bought into that, right? And we thought he was huge. So we're thinking like, all right. Though the last fight with Poirier was at 55. So, hey, he's going to be a lot bigger for this. And exactly like you said, and I've seen a few people being detrimental to Poirier, saying he looked emaciated, he looked a little scared at the weigh-ins. I was just like you're saying, I was more looking at, wow, Conor seems kind of small. And then in ring, he literally seemed, as you said, and I hate overusing this because we always do, he looked a weight class lower. He literally did. Yeah. Now, it was interesting to see post-fight where Conor, who was very, 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 very honest, gave very, very matter-of-fact opinion of what happened. I like how he said, and I believe him when he said this, he said he still felt stronger than Poirier.
Yeah, and I think you saw that in the clinch. Dustin got that really nice takedown, I'm sure I've stayed off social media because I don't want to see what people are really just the idiots are saying.
I don't think you're a Conor fan. Don't look at the men's.
Yeah. And I don't think that, people will be like, oh, Conor's got bad takedown. That was just a great takedown. It was in the middle of an exchange. It was just a great takedown. But you saw Conor drag Poirier from the center of the cage to the ring on his butt, stand up, turn position. Watching that, depending on what the cardio level was, I feel like Conor could have won an entire fight in the clinch against Dustin. The knees to the body, the shoulder strikes. I do think he looks stronger. I was just noting that he looks smaller. And my first, if I was to lay out what I think is going wrong with Conor, my first thing is I think just this change of weight classes all over the place has been detrimental to his body. He cut for so long to 145 when he probably shouldn't have. And then he went from 145 to 170 to 155 to 170, back to 155. I just think his body might be fucked up, man.
I couldn't agree more. And like I said, and I put more, and it's the same idea with John Jones. I put more into this, and like I said, they found this huge interest in being muscular and looking bigger. And I think with McGregor, more than anything else, I think that extra muscle does not lead to better crispy speed, and it doesn't lead to better power. And for him, I think he's a 145er, and nobody would ever touch him. 155, maybe in the top 5 or 10. just the biggest takeaway from that was how we all seen, and you've seen it yourself, McGregor was all about, I'm putting on muscle, I'm going to be muscular. All his pictures were him flexing, and then we seen him in there. Not that he looked skinny by any means, just next to Poirier, it was amazing, the difference.
Right. The other thing that really bothered me was his stance. And we've kind of seen an evolution of this, right? So if you watch old Conor fights, if you watch him against Aldo, if you watch him against Poirier, he's in this sideways MMA stance like this, right? And then this one, he's in this high guard boxing stance. There's a couple things about that. One, his whole thing was range, right? He'd feel for the range. He wasn't looking to get in a phone booth and have a fight of the night slugfest. The other thing is, if you were to take a boxer, right? Like people would say, if Floyd Mayweather, if Tyson Fury, if whoever came to UFC, what would happen? Well, there's two ways you're going to beat him. One, you're going to wrestle him, or two, you're going to leg kick the shit out of them. That's just how you would beat a boxer because of that boxing stance. That's how Conor beat Nate Diaz. And then Conor comes into this fight and tries to box an MMA fighter in a MMA match, right? Is that what you saw?
Let me just touch on the end part of that first. I think Conor's newfound craze with wanting to be a boxer is the demise of his MMA career for a few different reasons. But I seen it more as he, in his opinion, thought Dustin was going to come in there headhunting, whether it was with the feet or with the hands, and he thought his only hope was this. Versus what you're saying, where we always see a lot of this with Matt. He's setting up. Even when he does it with the left, he's setting up for that left. That's something for another day, but he has an amazing ability to do that. He uses his left as both a block and his power hand sometimes, and it's amazing to watch. But yeah, it couldn't. I do believe when he felt that first crisp bit of power, we all heard it. I mean, I believe that kind of like we saw with him in the first Nate Diaz fight, we've seen it with Matt. Very little, but we see it. His mind breaks. Unfortunately, I think we've seen that there.
Well, what I think a lot of it, one, I want to go on what you said. The boxing thing has really ruined it. You can't spend the time that you've spent. He's did the Mayweather fight, and then you're talking about doing a Pacquiao fight. And he might have even been looking past Dustin to this Pacquiao fight. You know what I mean? And he brought his old school boxing coach into the fold, which is cool. And I've enjoyed hearing from Phil Sutcliffe. And it's neat that he's going back to his boxing roots. But that's just not, yes, he's knocked people out with that big left, but he's not been a boxer. And we've seen guys with heavy boxing in MMA. Robbie Lawler's a boxing heavy fighter. Conor has knocked people out, but he's used two things: that turning sidekick to the body and that fucking teep. Not one teep and not one turning sidekick to the body. He threw that spinning hook kick and it half landed. But if he had thrown it to the body first, it would have been there. And you know, a Monday morning quarterback telling Conor McGregor what to do. But that's what he's made his whole living off of. Beating up the body with that teep kick, beating up the body with that spinning sidekick, and then coming up top with the left. Just working people, throwing the kicks to get them to come to the left. And he just was like spamming that left down the middle. And it reminds me of like Chuck Liddell when he got older and he just started throwing the overhand right, forgetting all the things that got him to land that right. You know, it's the boxing has ruined, maybe not permanently, but to this point, to me, the Conor McGregor with the no kicks and the heavy stance and the high hands. He was just tight. He wasn't loose and flowy. He's just, he had good head movement, but he wasn't flowy and loose and reacting, you know?
Absolutely. Couldn't agree more. I've seen a lot more planting. I've seen his feet stay still on the mat. When have we seen that? Unless he was laying down. We don't see that a lot. Right back to the boxing. I blame it on the boxing. He put so much time. And you know better than anybody else, Sean. You train, you fought, you know the difference between striking for boxing and striking for MMA. They're not the same exact thing. You know better than anybody else, and you can describe that. But I think maybe he's pushed so hard on the boxing, it almost broke into his MMA memory, dare I say, a tight bit.
Yeah, I agree. And I hadn't seen, I was on Twitter and I saw some stuff and I hadn't seen people really touching on the stance. But one thing I saw about the stance, I saw one guy pointing out, hey, it was weird that Conor had this stance And then Luke Thomas had responded to, Luke Thomas, you watch Morning Combat or anything. And Luke Thomas had said,
yeah, he's that guy with a way less cool beard than me.
way less.
I'd whoop that dude too. No, he's better at jujitsu. But anyway, moving forward.
But well, that donk. But he was saying that he thought that the high guard boxing stance was more economical for an energy standpoint for Conor, right? So this whole thing about Conor's cardio has been a long time thing, and it's something I don't really understand what happened with this. So we saw him fight Max Holloway over 3 rounds, was not a competitive fight, and there was he blew out his knee, and he wrestled, and he rolled, and he did jits, and he looked like he could have gone 6 rounds. I mean, he looked great. And then it never really gets talked about, but I saw in the Chad Mendez fight, so the first time I saw him start to gas, even though he knocked him out in the second round. And then his cardio has looked bad, and I don't know what the difference is. But to go back to what Luke Thomas said, if you're going to do a different stance to hold your cardio, but then you can't win the fight in that stance, so we're throwing out the baby with the water, right? Like, you should just go for what you know, and if it does, you run out of gas, you run out of gas. You don't want to be frozen. I've known guys in my gym who don't have great cardio, so you do less. You know what I mean? And then when you do less to save energy, but then you lose the fight. What are we talking about here? What's really the point of the contest?
No, I agree. Are you just looking for TV time or whatever to, maybe you think you're going to give us a better or not better show? But we can definitely both apparently agree on that. He has been, he had a better ability to wholesale his power and have it there when he needed it. We see him now, and like I keep saying, he's planting his feet. We haven't seen that a lot. And the other
thing about Conor to me is that he's got great killer instinct. When I saw Dustin come out of that clinch, I said my buddy Sam and my buddy Derek were over, and I was like, holy shit, Dustin's exhausted. He looked exhausted when he came out of that clinch exchange. And if Conor had started those teeps to the body right then, I think he could have put him away. And then Poirier said in the post-fight interview that after that big right, it was after the right even, he's like, oh man, I was probably 1 punch away from getting put out. And Conor McGregor has been, you give him a drop of blood, those guys like that, the Vitor Belforts of the world, the guys who just finish. And to see Dustin get wobbled and Conor just still stayed and like, what are you doing, man? Go.
I was, not to make this all Dustin Poirier by talking what Mac did wrong. I did like some things I seen watching him catch the kicks, and then return fire. It was awesome. I thought it was great. I thought it was going to lead to the end of the fight for Poirier. Unfortunately, it did not.
Yeah. There was the one exchange where he caught his foot and he brought it up high and brought him to the cage, and then he dropped it and tried to throw a head kick. And in the fight against Seaver, the same thing happened. He brought his foot, but he tried to kick out Seaver's leg. He didn't get it. Yeah. I feel like that's twice that he's gotten that position and didn't know what to do with it.
I do like that he immediately returned a kick, a high kick. We've seen Mac find, let's compare him to Aldo in that when he decides to use his feet, he's effective at them. And it doesn't require a lot of thought, and he gets right back to his base stance quick. I'll give him that. As soon as that happened, he immediately threw a high kick.
Yeah, and to switch topics for a second, because you just brought it up, I'm a Conor McGregor fan, so I'm just dissecting what he did wrong to lose that fight, not giving excuses. I'm just saying these are the things that happened to it. But to go to Dustin, coming in with that leg kick game, man, that was a beautiful, beautiful game plan. I think, and he stuck to it. He didn't give up on it, because that hurts your leg when you do it too. Guys stop throwing leg kicks because it hurts to kick somebody's leg. It just hurts the other guy way more. But his timing on it was really good. He was catching Conor in exchanges with the leg kick. He wasn't just doing it at distance and throwing the leg kick.
Right. He gave Mac too much to think about. When do you see Mac with too much to think about in the middle of a fight? Mac was, you got the circle up here, obviously. Then he gave him the circle down below to worry about. Anytime you want to, it's the same idea. We've seen Aldo do this. It doesn't matter how big or tough you are. If you necessarily, for Mac, keep the leg move. keep the legs moving, keep the legs moving, keep the legs moving. We've seen him take out bigger and stronger foes like this before. It's amazing, almost like Dustin Poirier, and like getting back to the high guard, almost as if he knew that.
Yeah.
On Dustin Poirier's end.
And then some of that is going to come to just not being in there enough. You know, you haven't, when you're saying you've got too much to think about, when Poirier's had more fights in the last year than Conor's had in the last 4 years. You know, you go Alvarez in 2016, nothing in 2017, Khabib, October 2018, nothing in 2019, Cowboy, January 2020, Dustin, January 2021. It's not reasonable to think that you're going to not only not have ring rust, but to keep up with your peers who are having 4 fights in 16 months, you know?
And let's give it to Cowboy and also kind of nick him a little bit here. He is a very active fighter, but from him to Poirier, not necessarily. And I understand his rankings. I understand his ability to fight. Like I said, it's not a knock on him. It's just, I think it was great to see Mac do that, but it didn't necessarily mean, in my opinion, he was suddenly ready for Poirier. Although, like I said, I didn't think Poirier did enough. I was 100% wrong on that. I thought Poirier had this hands down. I mean, I thought Poirier was going to get knocked out hands down. I just thought Mac was going to be able to find that chin again. I'm just so very impressed with Poirier right now. I mean, I hate to jump the polls here, but wow. And this guy's been around a very, very long time.
Oh, he's put on a great run. He's been super impressive, and he's impossible to dislike, which actually kind of brings me to the quote unquote the head games, right? I saw, when you saw the demeanor between the two of them, being friendly and whatnot. Now, a lot of people said, oh, Conor needs, Conor is going to come out soft because of that, or Conor needs that edge to be some competitive. I disagree. I don't think that Conor's attitude going into it affected his performance per se. But what I haven't heard anybody talk about is the opposite. I think that Dustin Poirier needs that nice guy to compete. I think that that made Dustin way more comfortable than he could have been. It's not that Conor needs to be all hyped up and crazy and aggressive to fight well, but I think that Poirier needs to not have that to come in and do his best work.
It's kind of more, my background, more of a tournament style upbringing where everybody shakes and bows and everybody's nice and you never talk any shit. Same idea. I would agree with that totally. We'd be remiss not to say this, as much as we both obviously love Mac, but the sheer embarrassment Eagle gave him is why he's not talking shit. That's my opinion, and it's probably real. I agree with that 100%. That embarrassment he took from Eagle is a huge part of why he's not. And I'll bet you the company maybe put something on him too and said, calm down. Which Mac can do. He can be respected.
I don't think, so this is where I'm going to disagree with you. I don't think it's because of that. I just think it's the next two opponents. I think that if he was to go against Tony Ferguson, you might see more of that again. Now, he might have had to, as byproduct of the Khabib thing, just because his reputation took such a hit, not because I got beat down, so now I'm not going to talk shit. But then people were like, because he got really, he told Khabib his wife he's like, you married a towel, mate. People got really offended by Conor. So I think maybe he had to tone it down because of Khabib, not because of the beating, but because of his reputation. But then I also think he just fought two really nice, respectable guys. You know what I mean? I think if he was to get in with Gaethje, I think there'd be some shit talk. If he was to get in with Ferguson, there'd be shit talk. And I think that would happen if it had been his next fight after Khabib. I think it's just the right opponents that I felt like he had too much respect for them, and that there wasn't bad things you were going to say about Cowboy. Right. There wasn't bad things you can say about Dustin without being an asshole, No,
absolutely. Well, I think the fact how Mac donated, what was it, $500,000, was it?
$500,000, baby.
And what was it,
the Good Fight Foundation.
Thank you, sir. Yeah, very cool of Mac to do. Very, very, very cool. Whether he was a complete asshole the whole time, donating to people's charities that's powerful to me.
Side note about people not liking Dustin Poirier. at the last Bellator event at Mohegan Sun that was supposed to have a crowd and they got canceled because of COVID. That would have been early March of 2020. Him and me and my friend Kyle were at the weigh-ins, and Dustin and Paul Daly almost got into a fight. They had to be separated. That's a little MMA story that maybe 15 people in the world know about. But yeah, Paul Daly and Dustin Poirier almost came to blows at weigh-ins at Mohegan Sun.
Jesus.
And I love Paul Daly. He's savage, dude. He's a savage. But when I'm saying that you have to be an asshole to not like Dustin Poirier, well, Paul Daly's an asshole, but pot meet the kettle.
Yeah, well, I mean, these things happen. I'm not going to get into him too much. I think he's kind of more depends on his mouth and his skills. But I mean, he's still far more skilled than me, and look where he's at. So what am I going to say about that? Anyway, let's not make this too heavy with Mac. I noticed you got your prop at 12 over there, and I the rumor is you're a big fan of his.
Let me hit one more thing, and
I knew it.
One more thing, and it's going to be kind of controversial. I think I want to see Conor leave Straight Blast Gym. I want to see him go to a big gym, a different coach.
It's not controversial in my opinion, and I could see people like, "What? You're crazy!" But yeah, I like that.
I think he needs a different look. I think that he's exhausted the training partners that he's had there. Oh, sorry about that. I think he's exhausted the training partners that he's had there. And I haven't liked the game plan. I didn't like the game plan against he tried to box Floyd when he should have tried to walk him down. He tried to walk down Khabib when he should have tried to dance around him. And then they even said after the Khabib fight, they're like, we were so concentrated on defending his wrestling that we didn't work on what to do offensively. And I think we saw some of that in this fight too, where they were there was no reaction to what Dustin really does. Dustin has a great, I'm not sure if you know this, Dustin's actually a right-handed fighter and he fights southpaw. Yep. You have to watch for that check hook. If you've ever watched a Dustin Poirier fight, that he doesn't knock people out with a straight left. He knocks them out with hooks, and his lead right hook is actually his dominant hand. And that's what he's fucking hitting Conor with. To me, that's if you're planning for a fight with Dustin Poirier, the last punch you should get hit by is that fucking right hook. It's just, I just don't think. I think that has run its course over there. And I know that he's made a big deal about sticking with the people that he's come from, but I also have an inside source that told me he also was very close to leaving after the first Nate Diaz fight. But I would like to see him, if not leave that camp, come get some round. Like right now, James Gallagher from SBG and Bellator, he's living in Missouri. He's training at James Krause's gym. I don't know what the name of the gym is, or maybe it's Detroit, but he's in the States with James Krause from the UFC, and he's staying there until his next fight, where he said he's not leaving America until he fights again. So,
well, let's shortly after the Mac loss, and we do see this, not every fight. I'm not saying it's out of place or anything, but it was a little odd. Kavanaugh got out ahead of it on social media and said, "Oh, we're making big changes. We know exactly what we got to change." It made me think of that immediately when you were saying he should leave. Brings me to a point I was making. I'm not a fan of his, but the old timer BJ Penn. Now, one of the worst things with BJ Penn's was it was a family gym that got him there. But once he became famous, and as they say with Conor, the silk pajamas, it's hard to get out of silk pajamas at 5, 6, 4 a.m. to go train. And that's a reality with BJ Penn. It was a reality, and it was part of the downfall of his skill set. And I would be remiss not to mention that as far as Mac, who is a billionaire or millionaire and doesn't need the money that bad. And I'm not saying he don't get up and train, but that hunger, that welfare, that no money in the bank, that's not there anymore, and you'll never get that back.
I 100% agree. And I think that was more a factor in his last fights. I believe that he was in great shape for this fight. I believe that he did the work for this fight. But I think that hunger part is going, like being a father, having the kids, having that, if you were to have asked him for this fight, like, hey, this fight is to the death, but the prize is $100 million. Kind of, what the fuck are you talking about? But I think if you had put those stakes in for the Aldo fight, he would have been like, sign me up. To the death. Let's go.
Good point. Yeah, that was a few seconds of 12, 13 seconds of some of the greatest things we'll ever see. And we were already fans of his. We didn't need that. Oh, hey, those never come off, bro.
Dude, I got this Connor tattoo done the morning of the Mendez fight, right? So before, as a show of like, I'm all in on this, and he won. So then before he went to fight Aldo, I had it redone again. I had my tattoo artist, Alyssa out of Black Velvet in Stonington. She just opened her own shop. She's great. I was like, hey,
Great.
we're doing this.
Crap.
Yeah, her Instagram is EB Tattoos. I was like, we're doing this again for luck, and then he beat Aldo, and then for the first Nate fight, I went to do it again, and she's like, I'm not touching that tattoo. You're gonna end up with horrible scarring. And then he lost, and I was so mad at her. I thought it was because of the tattoo.
Yeah, I remember the Mendez time. Everybody's, oh, wait till he faces a wrestler. Wait till he does this. Wait till he does that. And remember when he fought Silver, everybody, they can't get up. His takedown defense sucks. This sucks. And then he walked through Silver. And then everybody, whoa, as soon as he faces a wrestler, he's done. Then he destroyed Aldo. I think one of my favorite fights, just because we can't seem to get off Mac, one of my favorite fights I just got to mention, obviously, that 5-shot to KO combo for Alvarez. One of the greatest.
That's my favorite. That's the best performance in a championship fight of all time. Better than the one punch. That was the best performance we've ever seen. And that's what I wonder, right? So we look at Connor now and we wonder what's next. Where is he at skill-wise? If we just went with the run that he had, right? The 5-fight run. So we'll say Holloway, we'll skip Brandao, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Holloway, Poirier, we'll skip Seaver, and then you go Mendez, Aldo, those 4 guys, and then to go up the whole thing, I'll go to 170 last minute because Dos Anjos pulled out. Lose.
All right. Oh, so-and-so pulled out? No problem, boss.
No problem. Lose the fight. Say, I'll take that same fight again at the same weight, win the fight, win the second world championship. If he had walked away, I think you say that's the greatest fighter we've ever seen.
Sure. Hey, but that's another great point. I remember at the time, and I truly mean this, and I was a huge fan of Max, when he was supposed to fight RDA the first time, I genuinely was nervous, and I thought RDA was going to hand him his first loss. Going forward, I think right now is a good time for that fight to try to happen again. What do you think?
As just an MMA fan, sign me up. As a Connor fan, I think you got to give him, they leaked those DMs of him asking about the Diego Brandao fight, and everyone laughed and they jumped down his fight. But if you were to look at boxing, right? Boxers, world championship boxers, they take those fights all the fucking time,
Sure.
And I think that in MMA, it's a practice. It's nice that the best fight the best all the time, right? That's fucking awesome. But sometimes you just need rounds. Sometimes you just need to go get a win back. And I'd rather see a little bit easier of a fight for Connor in his next fight, just to let him get his bearings back, man. And when I say easy fight, I don't mean Diego Sanchez, just because like something like that would never be made. But maybe Paul Felder, somebody just a little bit lower down. And Connor has dropped. He's ranked number 6 in the lightweight now, so he can fight
right next to RDA. I'm telling you, in my opinion, the RDA is the fight to happen. I got to see this fight now. And I remember I was very nervous. I thought Matt was going to lose.
Yeah. It makes sense.
I really want to see that fight now.
It makes sense. I just don't like that fight for Connor right now, personally.
Right. Because although we've seen, I don't know if it is timing, age, the window closed, but whatever. RDA is not firing on that same 12 valve Cummings he used to fire on. He's more on like an 8-cylinder now, but he's still a power hitter, and I think he could still show us a very interesting fight.
All right, fine. Sign me up. You sold me.
Damn, see how easy that was? I didn't even push it hard. I like you, brother. Hey, but while I got you, what is that damn, is that from Donnie Darko, that rabbit thing?
No, this is actually,
yeah, that thing.
He is John Morrissey, and he is the mascot for the Dead Rabbit bar in New York. It's the #1 bar in the world. It's an Irish bar. And I've had the owner on the show, but they do this whole cool thing where every couple months their new menu comes out, and it's a comic book, and it's the adventure of this guy. He was the leader of the Dead Rabbit gang, and he was murdered, and he was come back as this figure, as a ghost. It's this really whole badass thing. But that's cool. John Morrissey from the Dead Rabbit in New York City, alongside with Beard Octane, Shamrock 10 for 10% off your purchase at beardoctane.com.
So it just so happens, yeah, boy, Bob also is sponsored by the almighty Beard and Beef Octane. And what a great company, huh?
Yes.
Using some right now as we speak. The Shine. No, that's gray, guys. I'm talking about the Shine.
Yeah. And it even works. I just got a small beard going right now, and I still use it just to keep it, because I got my beard grows like all kinds of funky ways, and it keeps it nice and conditioned and helps it grow correctly. So I recommend Beard Octane. I know Death Metal Bob recommends Beard Octane. You can go get oils, you can get combs, you can get conditioners. They got all kinds of stuff, man. Beardoctane.com. Tell them Death Metal Bob or Shamrock sent you. Shamrock 10 for 10% off, and we appreciate the love.
Heck yeah, it's awesome. I think it's pretty cool, brother, that we share that sponsor. They're awesome, and that's just pretty neat. On a side note, personal level, me to you as good friends, that's pretty neat.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. Hey, I heard there was more fights on that card. Oh, wait. What is that?
Look at that. I don't have one of those.
Beard Octane. In any case, there was other fights on that card, sir. What do you think? Let's talk about the amazing, really great performance, showing absolutely no ring rust, though most of us thought he wouldn't. Chandler puts on a great performance.
Iron Mike Chandler. So wow. An incredible performance. I was rooting for him. I've always enjoyed watching Michael Chandler fight, but when he's in Bellator, I wouldn't say I was like this big Michael Chandler fan, but I'm a Bellator homer. I like Bellator as a product. I've got friends that work there. I'm a Bellator homer. So when a guy from the UFC goes to Bellator, I hope the Bellator guy wins. When a Bellator guy goes from Bellator to the UFC, I hope the Bellator guy wins. So I was hoping to see him, and I thought he had the worst possible matchup he could have had in the top 5, just because Michael Chandler is a short 155er and Dan Hooker is a tall 155er, and you've seen him hit smaller guys with those knees. And I just saw Michael Chandler diving for a leg and fucking eating a knee through the back of his skull. That would have been, if I had to put money down, that was my prediction.
Absolutely, that went through my mind as well. I'm like, he's kneeable. And like you said, as am I, huge Bellator homers. And it's more than just, hey, that's who we like. It's the ability to put our hands on that product, to go see that product, and as to a higher extent to you with the friends you actually have over there. Even when my little ass goes over there, they know me. It's such a great homie event. The ability to see a Bellator live, unless you've done it, and you can see for yourself, it's different. It's got a different feel than UFC. It's not necessarily better or worse. You have to do it at least once in your life.
Right, and we're lucky where we live in Connecticut to have Mohegan Sun, one of the 3 largest casinos in the world, where Bellator, on a normal year where it's not COVID, they're still there 4 times a year, usually 2 back-to-back shows in the spring, 2 back-to-back shows in the fall, and they're reasonably priced, and they bring us the top level competition. So for years, getting to go see that, I become a fan of the product, and I've become really familiar with all their fighters. That's why it's so, to me, it surprises me. Michael Chandler was telling the story that he was in Vegas with Robbie Lawler, and somebody went up to him and asked him to hold the camera and take a picture of him and Robbie Lawler, and then asked him if he fought too. And at this time, Robbie Lawler, this was like, I guess years back, where Robbie Lawler was just still a journeyman and Michael Chandler was the Bellator champion, and he's like, fuck, bro, like.
And that is so, relatable. We hear stories like that all the time, and it's unfortunate, but they definitely, you can obviously tell they have different approaches to building stars. We've seen with our very own friend, and we've seen with MVP, and we've seen it with several people, and Scott Coker's admitted it to us, how he builds stars a little bit differently, etc. Me personally, I would have tried to, I'm not sure that's how I would have handled Brendan Ward, but it is what it is, I guess.
Well, to be fair, there's not really any way to handle Brendan Ward.
Good point, right? You just hold on and hope to get the Brendan show. We love your history, brother.
But Michael Chandler came out and he started throwing right away that right to the body, that change in level right to the body. And he sold Dan Hooker on that, and he landed it 4 or 5 times. And on the last one, he threw that right to the body and then just came up with a huge, wild, deep left hook and planted him. You know, after you get a guy in muscle memory, okay, right to the body. Okay, right to the body and he's out. Right to the body and he's out. Right to the oh, I'm on my ass, you know?
Amazing. I couldn't believe it. Like I said before with the power, it's like him and Poirier had some bet over who's going to punch hardest. They were finding that range. They were finding that chin. I mean, wow, the power Chandler was putting down was amazing.
Yeah.
I was so impressed with him. And I was trying not to be because like you, I love Bellator, but I have this memory of them all kind of shitting up the place their first fight over for whatever reason. Not that they're going to do shitty or not. Look what we've seen with Alvarez. He went on to do great things over there. But I was surprised more than anything. I had this look on my face the whole Chandler fight. Like,
well, when Mike Chandler threw that push kick, I knew the fight was pretty much over because I don't remember Mike Chandler ever throwing a push kick to somebody's chest in my life, and I knew he was just loose and he was in the zone. Did you see the reaction? It was like their hands-on moment, and he knew. He's like, oh, all right, Elvis. I think at that point, Michael Chandler was like, "Oh, I'm going to do whatever I want," you know. And that was a wrap. And Dan Hooker just didn't show up, man. You know, he didn't show up for that fight. I don't know if he landed but 2 strikes, so 2 leg kicks. That's it.
It's kind of twice. Some would say he didn't really show up for Poirier either.
Yeah,
well, I like what Poirier said. Not to get too far ahead of that, but I like what Poirier was saying about he don't think he should have to fight Chandler because of where Chandler's at right now. What was your thoughts on that without getting too far ahead of the Chandler fight?
I love that fight. I wanted that fight to be Poirier and Chandler. I wanted it to be Chandler's first fight. I thought that was a great fight. This was, you know, before the McGregor fight came around.
He'd rather sell hot sauce than have that fight. And what did you think about that?
I don't know. I'm wondering. I think there's maybe some personal beef there, maybe of some kind.
I think he was trying to send some sort of message to Dana, possibly too.
Well, I'd have to ask around about this, and I can ask Ian at Bellator because he might know. They both come out of South Florida, right? And there's inter-rival. Like the UFC even did a season of The Ultimate Fighter where it was Black Zillions versus ATT, I believe, and Dustin's an ATT fighter. The Black Zillions, they split up, but I think that Chandler, he's with Henry Hoof down there at Sanford MMA. I think that that's part of one of the factions of the Black Zillions. I think that there might be some South Florida kind of static over there. I love that fight, and I think it's the right fight to make. You know, they say, oh, it's Chandler who's only had one fight. He doesn't deserve that shot, but his one fight was against Dan Hooker, and he beat him. Dustin Poirier's last fight was also against Dan Hooker before he got the Conor McGregor fight. So what's good for the goose is good for the gander. If beating Dan Hooker is good enough of a resume to get Dustin Poirier a main event, should have been title shot against Conor McGregor, then beating Dan Hooker in the first round should be enough for Michael Chandler to get the fight against Dustin Poirier. I don't think you can. I think that it's smooth sailing. That's the fight to make to me. What do you think?
Throw Drew Bronx into the mix. I don't know. When Poirier said it, I listened, I heard it, and it made sense to me. And damn, if that guy can't, as long as he's been in the company, if he can't sway the next decision where his career's going, I mean, who can? It was. Well, what do you think? It was odd to me how specific he was, not insulting of the man. He speaks well, he always does, but he immediately downplayed that. I don't want to do that. I'd rather sell hot sauce.
Well, the UFC, like we kind of talked about versus boxing, they consistently put the best against the best. But it's not necessarily the 2 best. It could be the 1 best versus the 3 best. And I think Do Bronx is, if you're going to do an interim title bout, for example, I think Oliveira versus Poirier is probably the best fight to watch. But if you're doing business and you've got Do Bronx who doesn't speak English, and pay-per-view is not a market in Brazil, I don't believe. I think it's just like Europe where it's free. Or you have Chandler, who's coming off a huge knockout, former Bellator star, good-looking cat. He's going to talk and sell the fight. I'm making that fight all day if I'm Dana
Yeah,
White.
you're making good points. Less
It's not necessarily
talking. How about the Ric Flair-esque little rip he put on at the end?
I didn't care for it personally.
Here's my problem with it. It was corny as fuck because he didn't sound nothing like Ric Flair.
Right.
This is somebody who dresses up for Ric Flair on a lot of Halloween. So I mean, I know how to talk like the man, and he didn't.
If he had at least done a woo, you would have had me. But to just like kind of cut and paste,
he got to the point.
Did the walk, nothing. He
made the pressure point. He said the right names, so more power to him on that.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing it. And like I said, I don't know what more he could have done. In that fight for people to give him the props that he's due.
You can fight the opponent they give you. They gave him Hooker. He walked away with him.
Now after that fight, when you look at Chandler, right, the big question is how good is he? Where is he? I'm gonna throw names at you. Chandler versus Ferguson. Who wins?
Don't do that to me yet. I'd have to see another fight.
We
didn't see enough of what he's doing right now for me to even guess. I'm not answering.
Ferguson just dropped too far. I'll take Chandler all day in that fight. Okay. Chandler versus Gaethje. What do you like?
Oh, suddenly we can almost say which Gaethje, but I'm going to say Gaethje.
Okay. And then Chandler versus Dustin. What do you got?
Dustin with defeat.
Okay. I think he beats Ferguson. I think the other ones are coin tosses, and they're won't take my money pay-per-view fights. I might pick Justin, and I might pick Chandler over Dustin, but I think they're very 51-49 fights all across the board.
Sure, exactly.
And not to cut.
Don't mind now. Chandler off this big win. He's at the gym now with a whole new burst of energy and love. So we may see him step up a little bit in his next fight.
Yeah, well, that's what happens. They say when you win the belt, you immediately get better just because of your mental state. You get a win like that, you're going to get better because of your mental state. And that's the mental side of this game. Something else I want to throw out, just for if people are watching this and they're not big MMA fans, and maybe they just watch my show, or maybe they're the kind of people who just turn in. Like as a kid, I didn't watch boxing, but I tuned into the Mike Tyson fights. There's a lot of people who tune in for the Conor McGregor fights. In any one of these fights, what people need to keep in mind is that on any given night, someone can be the better fighter. That's why if you look at the World Series in baseball, the Stanley Cup in hockey, the NBA finals, there's 7 games. LeBron James and the Lakers could go to the finals and get their teeth kicked in by 50 points game 1 and come back and win and if that was the only game, you'd say, oh, this guy LeBron James sucks, so the Lakers suck. But then they could go win the next 4 games in a row. Any given night, any kind of thing can happen. Football's kind of coined any given Sunday, but I think fighting is even more than that. It's like it's such a small margin. Like that first leg kick lands on Conor McGregor, that might change the entire fight. If he missed that first leg kick and Conor hits him, we have a whole different fight. You know what I mean? It's fighting is such a game of inches, and the casual person, everyone thinks they know about fighting, and people tune in. Like I thought I knew about boxing when I just tuned in and watched Mike Tyson fights. I had no fucking idea what I was watching. I had no idea that he was fighting a fucking tomato can, a palooka from the front row. I'd go to CES boxing events, and Jimmy Birchfield puts on those events, and he does a great job of getting the local guy to fight a guy who looks good and is absolutely terrible. But I went to those fights for years having no idea, looking at guys like, man, this guy's incredible. No, he's fighting a bum. And the only point of my whole rant here is, to the casual observer, there's a lot to this science that nerds like me and Bob dig into and peel back these layers like an onion. And if you like watching these big fights, I think that maybe you should, anyone out there should listen to these MMA podcasts, listen to an Ariel Helwani and Daniel Cormier on a Monday morning, and hear the breakdown fights. You might find yourself even more of a fan because there's a lot out there besides what you're just seeing with your 2 eyes.
Sure. I love the subtle nuances and changes to people's careers that lead right to their performance that doesn't always necessarily have anything to do with their in-gym, in-coach training scenarios. Maybe you had a kid, maybe your aunt died, small things that get in the way of your training. You know me, I'm big on windows.
Yeah.
Some people's windows, they open for a while and they shut and it's over. Some people's open and close, open and close. We could say that about Poirier. We could say that about Robbie. For sure, Robbie Lawler's open and closed and then open back up. And
Connor's might be closed. We'll have to see.
Exactly.
It could be, but that doesn't diminish who he was. But
Nope.
and it might not be. That's why, like, my very first thing I said on this podcast is this fight left me with more questions because he won the first round and he won it. I don't want to say like convincingly. There was no question that he won the first round, but he didn't go out there and blow him out. He didn't go out there and win a fight around where nothing happened. He won the first round in a war.
He figured him out.
And
unfortunately, he didn't though.
Right. But it doesn't tell me enough to say, oh no, Connor's gone, because look how great he looked for 5 minutes. You know, I just don't know where we're at, and that's exciting to me. That's
exactly where I'm at with Chandler. I want to see him fight somebody else.
So there's one big news that dropped yesterday in the combat sports world involving an MMA fighter and a YouTube personality. Did you catch that?
I did. Is this one of those Paul twins you might be talking about?
Sure. That's what we're looking at. It's Logan Paul, right? Well, no.
Don't ask me because it took, dude, honestly, and embarrassing as this is going to sound, 3 of these stories dropped before I realized there was 2 of the motherfuckers.
Yeah.
I had no clue.
We're going to say Logan Paul, but that might not be his name. But he's fighting Jake Paul. I don't know. One of these assholes is going to fight Ben Askren, former Bellator champion, former ONE champion, former UFC fighter,
former undefeated fighter for what? How many fights? 17 fights?
I think 18, with some of the worst hands we've ever seen in professional mixed martial arts. What do you got? Sell me on your side of this fight. What do you think?
Okay, so listen, for some reason, and I don't know why, I can't hate the Paul kid there, and the problem is I don't know them enough to know exactly what I'm talking about. But the one that had the boxing match against
Nate Robinson.
Yes, he looked pretty damn good. And if that's the wrong guy, my whole story is going to be wrong.
No, it's the same guy.
I don't mind not knowing about these YouTube stars that aren't combat. That don't train in combat. It's okay not knowing. However, having said that, I think Ben Askren is going to lose. I don't know why. I just do. Kind of the same narrative you have. He's not this genius with his hands.
So I've been thinking about this since I heard about it. You know, not like putting a ton of thought into it, but both guys were on Ariel Helwani's show, and I listened to their interviews. I don't think that Ben Askren can be knocked out face planted the way he's still a professional fighter. Now his offensive game, I don't believe he's got the power to hurt this kid just because this kid is a big muscular dude and he's been training for a couple of years. I could see Askren just kind of shelling up and getting teed off on, but he's been in there with killers where he had to defend.
He does have a great chin if you take away one knockout.
Right, which that would have knocked out a rhino, that knockout. Now, granted, he used wrestling to overcome all of that, but he still had to start on his feet against all these guys. I just don't think he has the offensive ability to hurt Logan. Now I want to say it's Jake. I was convinced it was Logan, but now I want to say it's Jake because that just flew like that. But I don't think he's got the offensive ability to hurt him, but I think he's got the defensive ability to make it a tough fight. I do want to see somebody sleep this kid. I want to see him get in there with, like, Bisping was on the table. Fuck it. I'd like to see Artem Lobov get in there with him. I want to see somebody sleep this kid, but I'm going to say that he stops Askren late in the fight, TKO.
For the level of I keep saying combat in this part for me. For the level of this event, if he stays at that level, I think he could do pretty good, make a name for himself. The kid's already rich. He's already got a huge following of little kids. And me and you know now that we push these podcasts, how unfortunately embarrassing as it is, we want that fame too, and this jerk gets it somehow or another. But having said all that, he trains. He's got some decent boxing skills. He looked pretty damn good against that Nate Robinson guy, if that is the same guy. And if it's not, I'm sorry. But in any case,
it is the same guy. And he did look good against him. But you have to take into account that guy's clearly never been in a fight in his life and clearly did not train for the fight. So it's easy to look good against a guy who's terrible, you know.
And this is good that we notice that, because like we are always saying, and you can speak on this better than anybody, there's levels to fighting, there's levels to training.
Yeah, and that's why I think that Askren's going to be defensively good enough to make it an interesting fight, but his hands are just so terrible. And the reason this bothers me and the reason I want to see this get slept is I don't relate to what these Paul brothers do. I've seen some of their YouTube videos. I don't really think he's funny or talented. I've seen him rap. Like, there's nothing about him that I
we're just
like.
Too old. I think we missed that bus.
We did, but people who watch him are going to see him knock out Ben Askren and think that means that he's a bad dude, or that, a Bellator champion really isn't that good, or a former UFC champion, he's not really that good.
Not to cut you off, the same thing we're just getting over our CM Punk hangover. Let's not do that again.
Right. You know, that's why
there's a big guy in wrestling. He must be good.
Yeah.
Well, maybe not.
Listen, if he wants to stick around and fight basketball players and stuff, I'm all in on it. Oh, speaking of which, if I can get if you don't mind, I'm gonna plug real quick. I may be getting. Do you know who Lamar Odom is?
I couldn't tell you the team he played for now.
Okay, but he was an NBA player, a very good, not a superstar, a very good NBA player. And then he married Khloe Kardashian, and he overdosed in a brothel in Vegas.
Oh, yes. Okay.
He's going to be fighting in some promotion called Celebrity Boxing. I'm assuming that means he's broke. I don't know. The promoter of the event is somebody, I forget his first name, but his last name is Feldman. And I'm wondering if he's David Feldman's brother. But he friended me on Facebook, this Feldman guy, David Feldman. No, that's the other guy. Whatever.
David stuff.
I'm losing my Feldmans and my Pauls here. But the guy who's promoting this celebrity boxing match friended me on Facebook, and I hit him up. I'm like, hey, do you think I could get Lamar Odom on the podcast? And he said that he thinks so, and to touch base in the next month. So if you're somebody who likes these Jake Paul celebrity fights, I'm hoping to have Lamar Odom before his fight against his unnamed opponent. But he's a retired NBA player, married a Kardashian, overdosed and died in a brothel in Vegas, and was brought back to life.
It's crazy, right?
Yeah. What do you got coming up?
Crazy lives.
So you have two podcasts here, stud. You're over here double dipping. What do you got going on in your life podcast wise, bro?
Well, listen, not to brush the two podcasts away, which I will get into, but I mean, if you're going to give me a quick second here, I'd really, really love to talk about this new coming venture this spring that I'm going to push you for help on. I would love any help I can get from you. I'm going to try to.
Nah, I'm good.
No. I'm going to be hitting you up, buddy.
I'm just joking.
I'm going to be begging you for a venue or some help on a venue, but to get ahead of that,
yes.
I have a new venture. This is real. This is actual. This is called Savage Smack. It is New England's premier slapping contest. It's if you've seen slapping contest, it's right around the same idea. Nothing. No, it's slapping 5-on-5 each person to win. The first event's going to have 10 people, and we're going to crown a winner, and he's going to get about $500 cash plus whatever else we can come up with. I want to do two events like that. Okay, each champion who wins $500 is then on the championship. We're going to do it at an intermission of a Donnybrook Fight Promotions during their intermission, and those two will have a smack off to see who's the champion, and we'll give them an actual championship belt, Savage Smack championship belt. And I'd love all of you, anybody interested or anybody that just wants to go and click a like on that page. That is
Savage Smack on Facebook. Yeah. So that's crazy and interesting. Man, to do that, you have to have some balls or to be an idiot. I'm not sure which. Well, I could not stand there and let somebody hit me. I just don't. I would flinch. I would cry I couldn't just stand there and let you slap me in the face. So I can't wait.
It's weird coming from you because you get punched often. You spar way more than I do, especially these days.
Yeah, but I got to be able to hit back. In my mind, I'm going to be able to get out of the way. I couldn't just stand there and let another grown-ass man slap me in the face. Yeah. It would fucking freak me out. I wouldn't be able to keep my I would block. I would not be able to keep my
I love how humble
natural
you are. Yeah,
my natural fear reactions from kicking in. So I can't wait to see this Savage Smack event that you're
see
going to
all
put
these
on.
kids online. We see them in person, especially, you see them. I've seen them. You've been in the bar game. They're fighters. They watched UFC that one time. They're going to beat everybody's ass. Well, okay. Well, how about a smacking contest?
Right. Yeah.
I've smacked judges.
No, dude. We've seen the YouTube videos. This is something that's going on, man. Put in a mouthpiece.
And with a little luck, man, and with a little help from people like my best pal Shamrock, hint, hint, this could be something. I'd like to do one. I'd like to do this every year. Like I said, the initial event to get the first winner, the second event to get the second winner, and then those two would fight at an intermission. Probably Donnybrook every time, unless maybe CES. Who knows who wants to get involved? Cage Wars will definitely get involved with that too. But like I said, that'll be the crowning event. Will be at probably an intermission.
I'm in. Maybe we can work something out where I sponsor a round. This round brought to you by the Shamrock Show.
Love it.
We'll figure it out, man. Let me raise a hand, dude. Let me raise the winner's hand.
As far as my other podcasts, I do a podcast with a good friend of mine named Big Mike. Shout out if you're watching Big Mike, very supportive. We do a show called Bong 30 with Big Mike and DMB. Basic general knowledge. We got maybe a half a dozen shows in. Real fun, real general knowledge. Just something away from MMA for me. I rarely talk about MMA on it because it's all I talk about. You and I have this discussion a lot. MMA is great. We love talking about it, but sometimes it's good to talk about a little something else. Am I wrong?
Right. And that's like for me with my podcast, MMA is my love. And I try to keep combat sports like I'm training at a gym now, Second Chance Gym in Preston, shout out to it. And the owner of the gym there has offered me some good connections, but it's like, I gotta, and I'm going to take them up on them, but I want to spread them out. Like, I don't want to just do 4 boxing shows in a row, even if it's like really interesting cats, you know what I mean? Cause it's just like, I talk to my friends about fights. I talk, this is something to me that I'm trying to step outside of my comfort zone with. But
I love that you do that. The interviews you get are just almost in a way random, but at the same time, the randomness of them makes them so much. It gives your own show. Your show has a niche. The people you get on are always somebody different. And
well, I'd like to do one. I love coming on your show, and whenever you want to have me on the show, I love taking the ride down and coming down to your studio. I love your
you'll
studio.
always be an honorary co-host over here, and people that know the show, they know you.
Whenever you want me to come on, I'd love to. But I'd like to do this more often too, maybe with like the big fights, every once in a while, whether it's a Conor McGregor fight or just something like, for example, like how that 5-second KO happened with Ben Askren and George Mouse. If we saw something like that, when some big events come on, I'd like to do this if you're cool with it once in a while, because as much as I don't want to do an MMA podcast, I want to chat MMA with you once in a while, just to give some bonus content to my followers who do like MMA, and to expose myself to your amazing, huge audience that you have on your podcast.
I love you, man.
Nah, man, I love you, and I love what you do.
Like originally, I mean, you always knew that the idea of my show was to have a fighter, and then me, the guy on the couch, color commentator Bob, with some sort of fighter. That's why you're always welcome over. But not to mention that we always flow. If we got 10 minutes to talk, a half hour later, we still got 20 more things to say. It's not always efficient, but we always got a lot to say, brother. I appreciate you for that. I've known you a long time, and you are one of my, I mean, for years now, you've been one of my top buddies. You're always helpful to me. And you don't lie. You don't sugarcoat shit. If you disagree with something, you tell me that. I appreciate you for that.
Nah, for sure, man. And you're somebody who I look to, this podcast community is locally is small, and I like just watching what you do and the evolution of your show, and just in equipment and look, and you've got a different logo than you used to have. You've done just different. I like watching. You're always evolving, man, and that's how I want to be in my show. And I appreciate you coming on to chat this up with me. What are the links? What are your Facebook links for those 2 podcasts and Savage Smack? Do you know the links offhand?
Okay, check me out, Bove MMA Roundhouse on Facebook, roundhouse.facebook.com, and Savage Smack, capital HQ.
Okay.
That's the hashtag. Please, everybody, hashtag that. Hashtag Savage Smack, capital HQ. And same idea, you can find that Savage Smack on Facebook. Most of our platform, everything we do, unfortunately, is on Facebook. We are moving the show officially to YouTube going forward, and then putting it on Facebook after the fact. So there are going to be some big changes. Unfortunately, Facebook is, as much as we love it and as much as it gives us our following, it's time to go
And what about the Bong 30? What's that? Is that just facebook.com/?
Right now that is on Facebook, but we do have, you can head over to the Facebook page, but you can also, we do have a YouTube page, and the very next live show will probably be next week, and we're going to be shooting live from YouTube, and that is Bong 30 with DMB and Big Mike on
That's
Facebook.
what's up, man. That's what's up. I appreciate your time. I love you to death. This was great getting to talk about these fights because I haven't really had a chance to sit down and hash out a long form conversation on my heartbreaking Saturday night. So I'm happy to come cry on your shoulder, man. There's no other shoulder I'd rather cry about MMA on than yours, man.
Listen, I appreciate you, man. I've been doing this a long damn time, longer than you, and I'm jealous over your show, and I'm jealous in a good way, brother. Good shit. And I appreciate you, man. Let's get these brands out there. People, if you're watching, share everything. Share, share, share. Don't forget the Shamrock Show. Constantly bringing us great content.
The Shamvay Show House, bro.
Yes, I love it.
All right, man. I will talk to you soon. Thank you so much for coming on, man, and thank you for having me on your show because this is a dual meetup. You're the fucking best, bro. Roundhouse.
Over and out, big brother. Gunboat out.
Yes.
The Shamrock Show.